Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. We're back with my amazing women behind the amazing, but this time we are turning the tables, and I'm joined by the very, very lovely writer, voice talent, editor, bon vivant gentleman, James Taylor.
Almost
Hello,
didn't
James.
recognize myself.
How
All
are
right,
you
this is
today?
weird. I'm great, but this is weird for me because
You're not in
throughout my
control.
radio career, well, it's not the laws of control because I live in a house of women. I have no control. But I'm usually in the roles when I am talking on a microphone. I am in some sort of host or producer setting where I kind of set the flow. And
Yeah.
it's very unusual for me to be the one having the flow set. So, but at any rate, I won't bogart the beginning. Go ahead,
Well,
fire away. What would you
thank
like to know?
you. What would I like to know? What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I didn't. I have this very bad habit of not eating breakfast. I usually eat breakfast once a week, and that's usually on Sunday. And that usually consists of Captain Crunch with Crunch Berries. But
Oh, very sweet.
yes, they say you
Well,
are what you eat. And so I eat a lot of
oh,
turkey and I eat a lot of ham
so
because
you're
I
good
am a
meaty.
turkey and I am a ham. Yes.
Well, going back to Amazing Woman, I know in one of our discussions that we've had before, you mentioned to me that you sort of came up with the idea when you was on a road trip with friend of the show, Ken.
Right. Dr. Calculus, Ken Halloran, and uh, I'll give you the very long version of the story and that'll chew up some time. Uh, he and I were talking in the either fall or winter or early winter of 2020 about how I was starting to get up there in years and I needed to start doing some of the things on my bucket list before the bucket tipped over. And I had mentioned to him that one of the things that I had always wanted to do was not just specifically drive out west and see the western United States because um, I had only been past the Mississippi. Well, technically that's not true because I was in Iowa, but I had only been way past the Mississippi River once on a trip to Las Vegas, Nevada with my then fiance. And other than the trips to Iowa with my current girlfriend, uh, I really hadn't crossed the Mississippi River much in my life. So I wanted to go out and see the Western United States. But beyond that, specifically, something that I wanted to do was travel along Route 66, and not
Mm,
necessarily the historic Route 66, because even though I'm as old as dirt, I'm not old enough where that was a big thing other than, we were aware that it existed.
yeah.
But I like jazz, and I am a very big fan of the song Route 66, especially as performed by the Manhattan Transfer. And so I wanted to go through and take pictures and stop at every place mentioned
In the
in the
song.
song. Yeah, and for those of you not familiar with the song, I won't try to sing because my voice is a little strained. But the song lyrics go: "You go through St. Louis, meaning St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, Oklahoma City looks mighty pretty, etc." And there's a whole list of places in America along Route 66. And the way that the interstate highway system has developed, there is basically two highways that pretty much when you go on the actual interstate, you follow along through those towns. And when I told him about it, he said, that sounds interesting. And my company kind of forces me to take a week vacation every month because everything was down because of COVID. And so he said, if you do it on one of the weeks that I have to take off, I'll join you. And it's like, hey, two drivers are better than one. And he lives very close to Chicago, which is the eastern terminus of Route 66, the western being Los Angeles. So I flew up there and we left from Chicago and we wound to LA, as the song says. Well, while we were on that trip, I told him about an idea I had to do an audio play. Uh, see, I and you for that matter, did some audio play work for Timewell Electronic Recording Productions,
Mm.
which we lovingly call twerp because that's what it spells.
Our lovely
Uh,
twerps.
and that is through Ken, and through that both is how I met you.
Yes.
And so he and I talk audio production all the time, and so he was natural someone to talk about that as we were on the trip. Actually, we talked about everything. I am still vocally recovering from that trip. We talked ourselves hoarse on that trip because we drove for 8 to 10 hours a day,
Wow.
and we pretty much did not shut up the entire time, except for the last day back to Illinois from uh, Nebraska on our way back because we went back a different way than we came. Just because we both had no voice left. It was rather bizarre. So I told him about it, and I asked him if that was something he would be interested in. I told him the basic idea of what you have if you've listened to the show actually heard, and he said, "Yeah, that sounds interesting." And at for twerp, the only things that I did is I did some voice acting, but what I did primarily for twerp was write, and I wrote a different series based on a different set of characters for them, and they recorded it and produced it, and it was pretty nice. And then I did some production in conjunction with you on their Green Hornet
Mm,
fan
yes.
series, and but I didn't do a whole lot of voice acting. My voice acting actually came with a different production, a fan production of Babylon 5, and you can find it out there. I believe it's called Novo Babylonia. But at any rate, I digress. I take flights of fancy and tangents like you'd never believe. But at any rate, so I had done that with them, and that was the position. The only position I was really looking to angle to do was to write these stories and have Twerp produce them. That's
Mm,
really I was just wanting to write. I didn't even want to be the narrator. I just wanted to write these and get these down. And so I told Ken about it, and he thought it was a good idea, and he liked the basic idea of the plot and the setup. And so we called while we're on the road driving from place to place in a pandemic wearing masks. We call yes, traveling during a pandemic, not necessarily the brightest idea in the world, but as the whole point is that I'm not getting any younger, and I wanted to get that done while I could still do it because driving for 8 hours a day when you're 80 is not that easy. So
no.
so while we're on the road doing that insanity, we decided to go ahead and call Jim, who was kind of the point man on Twerp's production arm,
Mm.
and asked him if he would be interested, and he said he thought he'd be interested, and to send him the script once there was an actual script. And I said cool, and then I said, oh my lord, I have to write a script. So once we got back from that trip, and I flew back to North Carolina, I sat down and I wrote what is now episode one, and I got all excited. They're going to do this and it's going to be terrific.
Yeah.
And I send it to Jim, and Jim says, it's terrific, but I am way too busy to do this.
Mm,
Sorry, pal.
yeah.
Um, and so it's like, what do I do? And so I was just going to consign it on the pile of things that I thought were good ideas that I never did anything about. And really, I was really just going to put it there. And
Really?
Ken was like, "Well, are you going to do anything with it?" And it's like, I don't know,
Oh.
I don't know. And then I saw a video by Brene Brown, and she told a story about her daughter and a swim meet. And I'm going to try and give you the Cliff Notes version of it, but her daughter is like a competitive swimmer in, I believe it was high school, and there was a distance race that had to be swam or swum or whatever
Mm.
the correct word is. I speak American, so
Swam?
I get things wrong. All right, and
Swum.
her
Swam?
swimming I don't
I'm not
know. I
sure
would have said the
myself.
right one if I knew. So so anyhow, her coach came to her and said, "We need somebody to swim this incredibly lengthy race." It was like the last race, and it's kind of like not the marathon of swimming races, but kind of like the 1,000 meters, if there is such a thing as 1,000 meters. But anyhow, it was the longest of a competitive swimming meet, and they had nobody to swim the race for their team. And so he asked her to swim that race. And her daughter said to her mom, "I've never trained for the distance. That's going to be hard. I'm just not going to be able to do it. I don't want to do it." And her mom told her there is value in trying,
Mm.
even if you don't succeed.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
And so her daughter went out and swam that race. And her daughter didn't just finish in last place. Her daughter finished in like double second last place. Like she was last again. Everybody else was like, getting into their cars and driving home. It was that bad. But when she got out of the pool, instead of being discouraged and despondent because she had quote failed end quote
Mm.
miserably, she was very excited and charged and energized because she met the challenge. Now
Yeah.
she did not conquer the challenge, but she met the challenge.
Mm.
And again, the thing that I took from is there is value in attempting even if you don't succeed.
Definitely.
And inspired by that, I said, whatever. And so I went from wanting to write this thing to starting a production company, Hey Daddy O Audio, and then quickly realizing that you can't just start a production company and not actually have people doing things. And I couldn't do everything, and so I first drew uh, Mark Bauer in, a guy I've known for close to 40 years now. He had done a lot of theater and had done some directing, and I thought would be able to give voice actors better direction than "I don't like that, do it again," which is about all I can do for you. So I brought him in to do that, and then after we put together a cast, I realized that if I was going to put the show together, I couldn't literally put everything together because the show would have gotten done about 6 years from now. And
Yeah.
then I remembered our experience on the Green Hornet thing, where you had
Mm.
done all the dialogue and the pacing of the dialogue, and then
Mm.
I put the sound effects in and dropped the music in and created the final mix. And I said, that structure could work,
Yeah.
but in order
Yeah.
for it to work, I needed Nicole. And you auditioned as an actor,
Yes. Yeah. Originally.
and you cracked Mark and I up, and you eventually went on to do the commercials with me, or the
Mm.
adverts, as you might say. But that's a different thing. But as we were doing it, it's like, she can do this, and she can actually do it better than you. And so I asked you if you'd be willing. Look,
Well, I mean,
one,
when I
you
came
get
in, I
further in
was.
life if you know your actual talents and limitation, and you
Yes.
recognize other people's talents and
Yeah.
limitation. And I'm not trying to butter you up, although if it does do that, it works well in that regard too. um, you're better at it than I am. You just are. And so it's like, she's better at it than I am, and I can take one of these 57 hats off,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I brought you in to do that.
Yeah. Well,
And
when I came in, I said, I want to be involved in any capacity you have. I just
right,
want to
that
be
was part of
involved in
your
it. Whether,
audition
yeah,
too.
whether it's voice acting or behind the
There was
scenes.
also a lot of use of the word rubbish in your audition as well.
Oh God, it was awful. Absolute dross. But it got me in. I'm
Right.
still talking on My Amazing Woman, and here I am being an
Yes,
interviewer.
you
So
are. I believe the British word is presenter. You are the
I am the
presenter.
presenter.
Yes. Um, and I brought you on, and you had said in our conversations, I think in our text conversations before you did your audition, that you wanted to get back into doing audio because you had
Yes.
stepped
Yeah.
between your health and your child. You kind of stepped away
Mm.
from it a little bit.
Yeah, I
So
was I was ill for a while. Not to sort of go back to me because you've already done me, but I was ill for a while, and then I kind of got better, and I got back. I actually stopped working for a few years because I was so
hmm
unwell. I had chronic fatigue syndrome.
hmm
But then I kind of got better. I got back into work. I met my husband. We got married. We had a child who's now 3, and it kind of felt like the right time to. I've actually had like ideas of my own of things I want to do with voice acting, and my husband's always encouraged me to get back into it. And then James pops up out of nowhere and says, "Hey, look, I've written a script." And yeah,
You
it
want to
was
audition for it? Because we
yeah,
may not have enough people.
yes, basically.
Well, no, look, one of the things that has always been a problem for me is that I have this tendency to tell the truth. And that was the truth.
Yeah, you
When I
said, "I don't
approached
think
you,
we're gonna
I
have
wasn't
enough
even sure we were going to
people."
have enough people to audition.
Yeah, yeah, that was funny. I really need you to audition. There's not going to be enough people. All right then.
And then I didn't cast you, and that became
And
actually
they didn't
the
cast
source of
me.
great humor. But
Yeah, that was
um,
funny though.
but you see though, but you see all of that, and I'm a religious man, so I believe in like destiny and patterns and things. All of that was to get you back in my eyeballs, so that when I knew that I needed somebody to do the dialogue and it couldn't be me, I immediately remembered it had to be you. It had
It
to be
had
you.
to
Wait,
be
no.
you.
Oh,
You can stop
you know, I
recording
told
now.
somebody that the way that we are in those commercials is writing, but
Yeah,
maybe it's not quite as much writing as I thought.
I think we actually changed a lot of the wording, didn't we? Because we just started chatting and it's like, actually, let's make this different.
Well, certainly we did, even though I had a fairly tight script on some of those, we did a lot of like naturalizing
Yeah,
to
yeah.
make it sound like we were
I think
actually
it sounds better
saying
when
stuff.
it's natural. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I think
But
especially when we was doing that thing when I stopped pretending to be Dr. Nick. Hi, everybody. I thought that sounded funny because it sounded natural because you were sort of giggling as well in the background, and yeah, I really liked that.
your lawsuit just
Yeah.
waiting to happen. Yeah. But at any rate, so that's how we
We
got
got
to
to where
this
we are
point,
now.
and I'm still wearing lots of hats, but
Mm.
we went from an idea that I was tossing around with Ken in a car to an
Finished
actual real
product.
company, and I have the articles
Yeah.
for to file to make the company name actually a legally searchable name here in the United States.
Wow.
We've got a show on. We're on pretty
Mm.
much all the major podcast sources.
Absolutely
We
everywhere.
have a crew, and thanks to the benevolence of some very kind people, the crew has actually gotten paid.
Yay.
That and that's I want to talk a little bit about that, just because I've said it 1,000 times to you guys. I kind of want to have it on the record for infinity here on this podcast. I really do appreciate that all of you initially came on with no guarantees of getting a dime,
Mm.
and everybody that in the cast was professional and was brilliant and did a fantastic job as if they had been being paid in diamonds and rubies. And we lucked out and got some funding, and I was able to actually pay people. And I really appreciate the fact that you turned in the quality of work that you turned in without any idea that I was going. I thought that I'd be able to get funding. I thought I'd be able to pay you, but there was no guarantee that that was going to happen.
It was a
And
lovely, lovely surprise. It really
yeah.
was.
And so I want to thank you guys for taking a chance on me. And if I may speak directly now to our audience,
No.
please no, yes, ma'am. So please reward all of these hardworking actors and crew by you know continuing to listen when we finally get episode 2 done, and episode 3, and hopefully all the other episodes that I have to write. And now I'm thinking about all I have to do. I'm getting
Yeah.
fighting again. But please continue to come back and listen, and excuse us for not having a stockpile of episodes ready. This is not some conglomerate, some corporation operation here.
Mm.
This is a guy and his friends and his new friends, uh,
I think all of
going
us have
from an
day jobs as
idea
well.
into something that could be something really fantastic. And even if it's just, we do these few things and we're lost in the sands of time. This has still been an awesome experience, and I have you and the others to thank for it. So thank you.
Thank you, James. Oh,
So what
well,
else would you like to know?
I would like to know about your background because you've been doing voice acting and radio hosting, haven't you, for years? So I'd
Right.
kind of like to know where that's all started.
All right. Well, where radio started for me, really honestly and truly, was going to the library and taking out records of the old time radio shows like the Green Hornet and the Lone Ranger and Superman and all those things that my dad listened to on the radio when the radio was the television. And I listened to all those and I thought, man, that would be so cool to do. And so w- I not tried, I went into radio, and radio was cool. But by the time that I went into radio, radio is radio the way that it is now, where you play music and you sell ads, and that's about it. Nobody was
Yeah.
doing audio drama because why do an audio drama when you can do a television drama?
Mm.
So, but I did radio for many years after I graduated from college, and then I decided at one point that I would rather eat than work in radio. So I got a job that actually paid money, and I eventually ended up in the profession that I'm in my day job. But one of the things about doing even radio where you're an announcer or a reporter is it kind of gets in your blood, and even when you're not doing it, you miss it. And I
Yeah,
did miss getting in
definitely.
front of a mic and doing my thing. So
Mm.
I then went, even though I'm still doing my day job even now, I then went to doing a sports podcast. I'm a fan of all the professional sports teams in the greater Cleveland area because I'm originally from Ohio, and so I still do, in fact, a sports podcast about those teams, and that kind of scratched the itch a little bit. But again, that sports talk is still like current radio, and it's not radio drama. And that's what I really honestly, when I first started thinking about even being a radio and all, fell in love with. And then the podcast revolution came along, and people were listening for entertainment. A lot of people, for instance, have commutes, and you can pop a podcast in and you can listen to someone talk. Now, a lot of podcasts are about current events and sports and politics and whatnot, and you can listen to that. But you can also listen to audio dramas on your
Mm.
way into work. And so that sort of has created a renaissance for audio drama.
Yeah.
And w- at one point while I was working, because you can't really watch a show while you're working because you need your eyeballs to work on your job,
Mm.
unless you're, the world's greatest slacker, which I'm not. Hopefully I'll be retired and then I can be the world's greatest slacker. But um, at some point, I do want to retire. Sometime before, I do want to retire
You've
before I
just
die. I don't
started a
want.
production
Yeah, yeah.
company.
Well, yeah. Well,
I
I
don't
can
think you'll
retire
be
and do
retiring
that, so then I wouldn't be
anytime
retired.
soon.
I could be like my old man. My father retired from his job that he had when I was in high school, and then in his retirement worked as a crossing guard long enough to retire from being a crossing guard. So,
Oh,
I imagine I'll be like my old man when I stop
I
working
can
at
just
what I'm
imagine
calling
him
the day
dressed as a.
job. I'll just be doing this
Do you
full
know what
time.
we call them in England?
What do you
Crossing
call them?
guards. A lollipop man or a lollipop lady. Honestly,
Because of the
I'm not
sign?
joking. Yeah, because the sign looks like a lollipop. So they're called
Ah,
lollipop man or a
the
lollipop
lollipop
lady.
man. I'll have to tell my dad that. I
Yeah,
am very
I can just
fortunate.
imagine him dressed as one. I bet he looks so cute.
My dad turned 92 in 2021, and he's still with
Yes.
us. My mom has gone on, but my dad is still with us, and will be more than glad to tell him about it. I don't know that he's heard the show because my family is very peculiar about this aspect of me. I did radio for many years, and I've done other creative endeavors, and I can get many of my friends to listen to them, and I can get many of their friends and their family to listen to them. But my family kind of like, yeah, I didn't think it was funny.
Oh,
well, it,
maybe it's a humour thing.
well, it's just the way that
Different.
my family
Just
is.
different.
My mother, as I reminded my mother, I got paid to write jokes for commercial radio. I did that when I was in the Cleveland market,
Mm.
and my mother used to always say, there's really not anything you've ever done that I found funny. Nice to have your mom supporting you like that,
Yeah.
but but I eventually just had to chalk it up to the fact that she and I had different senses of humor because
Mm.
other people actually found what I did funny, and uh, I think that the majority of our audience here for My Amazing Woman finds the show amusing. I sincerely hope so. Otherwise, I'm wondering why you're listening. But but so yeah,
I
that is
think it's
that
a
is
parent
one
thing.
regret in my whole career is that my mom really didn't enjoy me.
Well, she didn't enjoy your writing.
She didn't enjoy me either. She no, no, no. She,
This
my
is
mom and I
becoming
actually got
very
along
dark.
famously. But she just didn't think I was funny, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
I think that's a parent thing.
It
I
may
really
be.
do.
It may be. It might have been if some complete total stranger said the same thing or wrote the same joke or did the same show that I did that she would have found it hysterical. I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna live with that. Thank you for that one.
That's okay.
Alrighty. Well, we've actually been at this
I was going to
for
say, I've got
quite a
more
long
questions,
time.
but maybe we should stop here
Well,
and I'll save them
well,
for another time. I
well,
think
all right. That's fine. But thank you. It's been an interesting experience being on the other end of the interview shoot. The next time that we do this, though, I'll be back on the front side talking to somebody
Yes.
else if I can get somebody else to talk. I'm not sure
Mm.
who that's going to be yet.
Who's going to be next? I
Well, that's
wonder.
just it. I don't know. If nothing else, I'll just come back and have you do it again.
Well, I could always pretend to be each person. That'd be interesting. I was about to start trying to do an impression of Ken. No, don't do that.
I
That would
don't
not
know that
be
your vocal
good.
cords can reach quite down that far.
Exactly. I sort of felt myself trying to place my voice, and no, don't
No,
attempt it,
don't
Nicole.
hurt yourself. All right. Well, thank you. And this is, I guess, the part since you're relatively new to presenting, where you tell everybody thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Was that okay? Or should I
Bravo.
do it very, very
No, no,
seriously?
no, no, no.
Thank you for
That's good.
listening, and we shall see you next time on My Amazing Woman Behind the Amazing. There you go. You got two. You can try that.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.